Chapter 8, Noli Tangere, published in Berlin.
Good day everyone, I'm Miss Gennaro Salgarino, and now I want you to imagine being inspired by a book so powerful that it makes you want to change the world. That's what happened to Rizal when he read Harriet Beecher Stowe's Uncle Tom's Cabin. The novel exposed the harsh realities of slavery in America, and Rizal thought, Filipinos are suffering under Spanish rule. Why shouldn't their story be told? In 1884, in Madrid, he suggested to his fellow reformists that they write a novel together. The idea was exciting, a collective effort to speak against injustice. But as weeks passed, he realized most of his peers were not serious. Their lack of commitment frustrated him. Now, feeling disappointed and disillusioned, Rizal made a bold choice. If the story was to be told properly, he had to write it alone. This marked the birth of a personal mission. What started was a shared dream became his own responsibility to history and to the Filipino people. Now, while he was writing the Noli Tangere, it was not easy. It was a journey across cities, countries, and personal limits. Rizal finished the first half in Madrid, carefully building characters who reflected Filipino society. He moved to Paris, working on the second half, refining the plot and deepening the novel's social critique. Finally, he reached Germany, where the last chapters were written in the town of Wilhelmsville, a place that allowed him to focus amid a foreign land. By 1886 in Berlin, life was harsh. Rizal was sick, hungry, and penniless, often forced to choose between basic needs and his writing. In moments of despair, he almost burned the manuscript, feeling that all his work might vanish before ever being published. Despite these hardships, he persisted, carrying the manuscript with him wherever he went. Every page reflected not just creativity, but sacrifice, courage, and unwavering commitment to telling the Filipino story. Now, just when hope seemed dim, Dr. Maximo Viola, a wealthy friend from Bulacan, arrived in Berlin. Seeing Rizal's condition, Viola was shocked and moved, and immediately decided to finance the publication of the novel. Now, even then, challenges remained. To reduce costs, Rizal had to cut some passages, but he ensured the message stayed powerful. And finally, in March 1887, Noli Tangere was published. What began in desperation, isolation, and struggle became a triumph of Filipino literature, a novel that awakened the Filipino conscience and inspired generations. Rizal's journey reminds us that great change often happens or begins with personal sacrifice, determination, and the support of those who believe in your vision. Now, let us welcome the next reporter to continue this chapter.
Good day everyone, I am Jeneline Pavadora and I'm going to discuss about Viola as the savior of the Noli. Dr. Maximo Viola was a propagandist, writer, revolutionary leader, and a doctor from Bulacan. He was a scion or a descendant from a rich Bulacan family who sent telegram to Rizal indicating that he would come to Berlin. As soon as he arrived before Christmas in 1887, he was shocked to see Rizal living in poverty and sickly due to lack of proper nourishment. And upon seeing this predicament or such an unlucky situation, since he had ample funds because he came from a rich family, he then agreed to finance the printing cost of the Noli Tangere. He even loaned Rizal some cash for his living expenses, and they celebrated their Christmas together in Berlin. Now, in finalizing the novel manuscript, right after Christmas, Rizal put some finishing touches on the novel. And to save the printing expenses, he even removed certain passages, including the entire chapter titled Elias and Salome. On February 21, 1887, the novel was finally completed and ready for printing. Now, Viola and Rizal decided to roam around the city to find shops, to survey some shops and compare their printing costs. Now, after some sort of canvassing and comparing the cost, they finally selected the shop called Berlinei Buchdruckerei Action Jessel Shop. So, this shop offered the lowest rate, which cost 300 pesos, good for 2,000 copies of the novel. Now, during the printing process, the Berlin's police chief made a sudden visit to Rizal's boarding house to check for his passport. Unfortunately, during that time, Rizal doesn't have a passport. If nowadays, we really need a passport to pass immigration and to travel to different countries, but during their time, it's possible to travel without one. Now, after knowing that Rizal doesn't have a passport yet, so the police chief ordered Rizal to get one with an ultimatum of 4 days, or else he would face deportation. Rizal went to the Spanish embassy together with Viola to seek help or assistance to the ambassador, Count of Benumar. So Count of Benumar was a person who promised assistance to Rizal but failed to deliver as he had no power to issue passports. So when Rizal reported back after 4 days, the police chief then explained to Rizal that intelligence reports had raised suspicion which stemmed from Rizal entering Germany from Paris. So Paris is the place where Rizal lived for years. And the suspicion was because Rizal made frequent visits to the villages or little towns and some rural areas in Germany, and that aroused the German government's suspicion that he was a French spy. So at that time, the relationship between France and Germany were strained on the account of Alsace-Lorraine. So Alsace-Lorraine is a historical region in northeastern France. So Rizal spoke in fluent German to explain that he's a Filipino physician and ethnologist, not a French spy. And he reasoned out that his frequent visits were just all about for observing the customs and lifestyles of the inhabitants. So after this very convincing explanation, the police chief was really impressed on his fluency, mastery of the language, and his overall charisma, allowing him to stay freely in Germany.
Good day everyone, good day sir. I am Eloise Gabutan. So now let's talk all about the printing of the Noli finish. After the incident of his aborted deportation as a suspected French spy, Rizal with the help of Viola supervised the printing of the Noli. Day by day they were at the printing shop proofreading the printed pages. On March 21, 1887, the Noli Me Tangere came off the press. Rizal immediately sent the first copies of the printed novels to his intimate friends, including Blumentritt, Dr. Antonio Maria Regidor, G. Lupis Haina, Mariano Ponce, and Felix R. Hidalgo. In his letter to Blumentritt, dated March 21, 1887, he said, "I am sending you a book. It is my first book, though I have already written much before it and received some prizes. It is the first impartial and bold book in the life of the Tagalogs. The Filipinos will find it the history of the last 10 years. I hope you will notice how different are my descriptions from those of other writers. The government and the friars will probably attack the work, refuting my arguments, but I trust in the God of truth and in the persons who have actually seen the sufferings at close range. I hope I can answer all the concepts which have been fabricated to malign us." On March 29, 1887, Rizal, in token of his appreciation and gratitude, gave Viola the galley proofs of the Noli carefully rolled around the pen that he used in writing it and complimentary copy, with the following inscription: "To my dear friend Maximo Viola, the first to read and appreciate my work, by Jose Rizal." After financial struggles and personal stress, including being suspected as a spy, Rizal published the novel in Berlin on March 21, 1887. This was made possibly by the financial support of his friend Maximo Viola. Rizal's gratitude was profound, which is the one that he gave Viola the galley proofs, including the pen that he used to write it. So now let's move on to the title of the novel. The title Noli Me Tangere is a Latin phrase which means touch me not. It is not originally conceived by Rizal, for he admitted taking it from the Bible. Rizal, writing to Felix R. Hidalgo in French on March 5, 1887, that said, "Noli Me Tangere" words taken from the Gospel of St. Luke signify "do not touch me." In citing the biblical source, Rizal made a mistake. It should be the Gospel of St. John, chapter 20, verses 13 to 17. According to St. John, on the first Easter Sunday, St. Mary Magdalene visited the Holy Sepulchre, and to her our Lord Jesus, just arisen from the dead, that said, "Touch me not, I am not yet ascended to my Father, but go to my brethren, and say unto them, I ascend unto my Father and your Father, and room me God to your God." Rizal viewed the Noli as a history of the last 10 years of Philippine life. In his letters, he emphasized two main goals. The first is the truth-telling. He wanted to describe the Philippines differently from foreign writers who often maligned Filipinos, and the second one is defiance. He anticipated that the Spanish government and the friars would attack him, but he was prepared to defend his work because it was based on the actual sufferings of the people. Lastly, let's tackle about the author's dedication. Rizal dedicated his Noli Tangere to the Philippines, to my fatherland. His dedication runs as follows. Recorded in the history of human sufferings is a cancer so malignant, a character that the least touch irritates it and awakens in it the sharpest pains. Thus, how many times when in the midst of modern civilizations, I have wished to call thee before me, now to accompany me in memories, now to compare thee with the other countries, hath thy dear image presented itself, showing a social cancer like to that other. Desiring thy welfare, which is our own, and seeking to the best treatment, I will do with thee with the ancients did with their sick, exposing them on the steps of the temple, so that everyone who came in to invoke the divinity might offer them a remedy. And to this end, I will strive to reproduce thy condition faithfully, without discriminations. I will erase a part of the veil that covers the evil, sacrificing the truth, everything, even vanity itself, since as thy son, I am conscious that I also suffer from thy defects and weaknesses. So for the author's dedication, for the social cancer, for a broader explanation, Rizal dedicated the book to the fatherland. To his fatherland, the Philippines. His dedication establishes the novel's central metaphor. He describes the Philippines as suffering from a malignant, or the social cancer, like the corruption, friar abuse, and ignorance. By following an ancient custom where the sick were placed on temple steps so passerby could suggest a cure, Rizal exposed in the country's diseases to the world. He believed that by raising the veil and exposing the truth, even if it was painful, the country could eventually find a remedy and a cure. That's it. Thank you so much for listening.
Hello, good day everyone. Today, I will be presenting the synopsis of Noli Me Tangere by Dr. Jose Rizal. Noli Me Tangere is a novel composed of 63 chapters and an epilogue. It portrays the social realities of the Philippines during the Spanish colonial period. The story begins with a reception hosted by Capitan Trago in honor of Crisostomo Ibarra, a young Filipino who returns to the Philippines after 7 years of studying in Europe. Crisostomo Ibarra is the son of Rafael Ibarra, who was falsely accused, imprisoned, and eventually died due to the abuse of power by Spanish authorities and friars. As Ibarra uncovers the truth about his father's death and the desecration of his grave, ordered by Padre Damaso, he becomes more aware of the injustices present in the society. Now, the novel also highlights the suffering of ordinary Filipinos through the tragic story of Sisa and her sons, and it is Basilio and Crispin, who became victims of cruelty and oppressions. Now, through these events, Noli Me Tangere exposes corruption, hypocrisy, and social inequality, and lastly, the calls for justice and reform. And that's it for the synopsis of Noli Me Tangere. I will give the floor to the next presenter. Thank you.
Hello everyone, and today I will going to discuss what happened in chapter 8 of Noli Me Tangere. So this chapter shows a mix of joy, danger, and growing conflict in the story. So the chapter begins during a pleasant picnic by the river. Before the famous crocodile incident, Maria Clara was asked by her friends to sing, so she played the harp and sang the song of Maria Clara. Her song expressed deep love for one's native land, family, and homeland. It showed Maria Clara's gentle personality and Rizal's theme of love for country, even linking it to the idea that dying for one's homeland can be sweet. So, after the song and the crocodile incident, the group went ashore and enjoyed a joyful picnic in Shadow Meadow. Important people were present, such as Padre Salve, Capitan Basilio, the alferez, and town officials. Everyone enjoyed the food and games. Ibarra played chess with Capitan Basilio, while Maria Clara and her friends played the Wheel of Chance, a fortune-telling game. However, Padre Salve interrupted and destroyed the book, saying the game was sinful. This scene shows the friar's control over people's actions, even harmful fun. Soon after, soldiers of the Guardia Civil arrived looking for Elias because he was accused of attacking Padre Damaso and humiliating the alferez. Elias had already escaped, showing again how he is constantly hunted by authorities. During this picnic, Ibarra also received good news, a telegram approving his donation of schoolhouse for San Diego, highlights his desire to help the people through education. The next day, Ibarra visited Philosopher Tasio to talk about the schoolhouse project. He noticed that Tasio wrote in strange symbols. Tasio explained that he was writing for future generations who would understand and realize that not everyone was ignorant during their ancestors' time. Although Tasio was pessimistic about the project, the construction of the schoolhouse continued under the supervision of Nor Juan. Meanwhile, San Diego prepared for its grand fiesta in honor of San Diego de Alcala. The town was filled with visitors, music, bands, food, fireworks, and a high mass was held. Padre Damaso gave a long sermon criticizing educated Filipino who spreads what he called dangerous ideas. So this reflects Rizal's criticism of friars who feared education and enlightenment. During the mass, Elias warned Ibarra about a plot to kill him during the laying of the schoolhouse cornerstone. Later that day, Elias' suspension proved correct. When Ibarra went down to the trench to cement the cornerstone, the direct collapsed. Elias quickly pushed Ibarra away, saving his life. The man responsible for the sabotage did instead. This shows Elias' loyalty and the real danger faced by reform-minded Filipinos. That night, during a grand dinner, a tragic event occurred. Padre Damaso publicly insulted Ibarra's dead father. Unable to control his anger, Ibarra punched Padre Damaso and nearly stabbed him. Maria Clara stopped him just in time. This incident has serious consequences as Ibarra was excommunicated and his engagement to Maria Clara was broken. However, the liberal-minded Governor-General supported Ibarra. He reassured him, helped reconcile him with Capitan Tiago, and promised to work on lifting the excommunication. After the fiesta, Maria Clara fell ill. She was threatened by Don Tiburcio de Espadanya, a quack doctor, and his wife, Doña Victorina, who looked down on her fellow Filipinos and pretended to be Spanish. Doña Victorina and Padre Damaso later introduced Don Alfonso Linares, a fortune-seeking Spaniard, as a possible suitor for Maria Clara. Despite this, Maria Clara remained loyal to Ibarra. So in summary of chapter 8, it highlights love of country, abuse of power by the friars, the danger faced by reformers, and the depending conflict between Ibarra and the religious authorities. It also shows how personal happiness and national progress are constantly threatened by injustice.
Okay, so the third part of the synopsis recounts key events and background stories in Noli Me Tangere, focusing mainly on Elias Ibarra and the injustices of Spanish colonial society. It highlights moments of social conflict, including a comic quarrel between two women that nearly turns violent, revealing the pettiness and moral decay encouraged by colonial rule. Much of the narrative summary centers on Elias, whose tragic family story is exposed. His father was falsely accused, tortured, and driven to madness, while his mother and sister suffered greatly and eventually disappeared or died. These injustices shaped Elias into a fierce critic of oppression and a defender of the poor. Elias becomes closely involved with Crisostomo Ibarra, repeatedly helping him escape danger, including an attempt on his life. Despite his loyalty, Elias refuses Ibarra's offer to flee abroad, choosing instead to stay and fight for change in his homeland. This synopsis ends tragically, with Elias being mortally wounded while helping Ibarra escape. As he dies, Elias expresses his enduring love for his country and hope that future generations will achieve the freedom and justice he could not. The passage describes the ending of Noli Me Tangere after the events of the novel. Maria Clara enters the Santa Clara convent, while Ibarra, disillusioned, leaves the parish of San Diego and goes abroad to Europe. Padre Damaso becomes a chaplain of the nunnery, and Padre Salve is later found dead in a remote region. Capitan Tiago declines into alcoholism and eventually dies, while Don Tiburcio disappears. Maria Clara, weakened by suffering, dies and is buried in Paco Cemetery. Doña Consolacion remains in the barracks, and the novel concludes with Maria Clara as a tragic figure, forever lost to the world. Okay, so that's all for the synopsis part.
It first is the Noli based on truth. The Noli Me Tangere, unlike many works of fictional literature, was a true story of Philippine conditions during the last decades of Spanish rule. The places, the characters, and the situations really existed. The facts I narrate there, says Rizal, are all true and have happened. One can prove them. Characters were inspired by real people. Most characters in the novel were drawn from individuals who lived during Rizal's time. Major character inspirations: Maria Clara, based on Leonor Rivera. Unlike the novel, she became unfaithful and married an Englishman. Crisostomo Ibarra and Elias represented Rizal himself. Tasio, the philosopher, based on Rizal's elder brother, Pasiano Rizal. Padre Salve, identified as Padre Antonio. Captain Tiago, based on Capitan Hilario. Doña Victorina, based on Doña Agustina Medel. And lastly, Basilio and Crispin, based on Crisostomo brothers of Hagonoy. Padre Damaso represented the typical Spanish friar of Rizal's time, arrogant, immoral, and anti-Filipino. Noli Me Tangere is considered realistic because it truthfully depicted Philippine society under Spanish rule. Rizal based the novel on actual events, places, and social conditions he personally witnessed. Many characters were inspired by real people, making the story deeply rooted in reality. Maria Clara was modeled after Leonor Rivera, though her real-life fate differed from the novel. Ibarra and Elias reflected different aspects of Rizal himself, symbolizing reform and revolution. Other characters like Padre Damaso and Padre Salve represented abusive and corrupt friars of the time. Through these real-life inspirations, Rizal exposed colonial abuses and Filipino suffering with authenticity. Number 2. Missing chapter of the Noli. The original manuscript of Noli Me Tangere contained a deleted chapter titled Elias and Salome. Rizal removed this chapter mainly to reduce printing costs, not because of its lack of importance. The chapter revealed Elias' softer, more human side through his love for Salome. Their conversation showed themes of sacrifice, destiny, and social injustice. Salome represented innocent love affected by poverty and social instability. Elias' tragic past and revolutionary mission made their understanding of Elias' character. Next is Rizal's friends praise the Noli. Rizal's friends warmly praised Noli Me Tangere for its courage and emotional depth. They recognize it as a powerful exposure of Filipino suffering under Spanish rule. Rizal expected harsh criticism from the government of friars, whom he openly challenged. Despite opposition, he trusted that truth would defend his work. Ferdinand's praise was especially meaningful and sincere. He admired the novel's heartfelt writing and cultural significance. Such support strengthened Rizal's resolve to continue his reformist mission through literature.